Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Good Thing. My name is Stefan, and today we have a very special episode because we're actually in person. So you can see here that I'm actually touching my co-founders. We're here for the first time in Breton on a working retreat. And for our 10th episode, we thought we would make it special by having an episode with all of the co-founders. Usually it's mostly me and Jens, but today we've also brought in Bjorn and Dustin. We also have this makeshift microphone that Dustin helped build for us. But I'm going to pass it off to my two co-founders that you've maybe seen Dustin on the show, but also Bjorn is his first time on the show. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself, Bjorn. Bjorn, how are you doing today?
Besides having a cold, which kind of affects my voice, I'm afraid I'm good. Super excited to be here again after being gone for 2 days to do some other stuff. I'm Björn, the CEO of the company, one of the co-founders, and I do all the stuff behind the scenes. So this is kind of my perfect opportunity to finally tell you a couple of things about what's it like to run a remote-first crazy startup with a lot of crazy guys. So looking forward to that.
Love that. I have a mic here, so I can talk through it.
Over to you.
But Dustin,
I hope you have seen me already on the episode. So yeah, my name is Dustin, CTO of WunderGraph, and yeah.
I knew you were going to make that intro. I knew he was going to make that intro. Dustin, we like to call him the Machine because...
No, we call him Prince Charming.
Prince Charming and the Machine. But this episode's special because, one, we're in person, and two, we have some really exciting updates coming soon. But what we wanted to do on today's episode is just kind of talk a little bit about how we got to this point. So for those of you that don't know the story, I met Jens online in 2021 or 2022, a long time ago, if you will, right after COVID, and we met online. He knew Bjorn from his working days at T Online, and then we met Dustin through open source. And when you look back at everything that we've achieved, it's amazing. And so for today's episode, as our 10th anniversary, no, I'm kidding, as our 10th episode, we're going to be talking about the strategic decisions that shaped WunderGraph. And what's really exciting about this one is you're going to get a viewpoint from different parts of the company. So what was strategic that shaped us from the customer side, from the business side, from the product side, as well as for the development side. And so I'd like to kick this off and start with Dustin. Dustin, we talk about this a lot, but what are some of the strategic decisions that you made from the technical side after our meeting in, I think it was Amsterdam? We were on a working retreat and things weren't looking good for the company, and we decided to go all in on Cosmo. And to this day, the architectural decisions that we made were paramount to our success. What were some of the decisions that you made and why?
I think one of the fundamental decisions was, first of all, being fully open source. I think this has shaped the past and also the future. Another thing is our architecture, everything is also open source and openly available. And during building Cosmo Cloud, one of the key principles was always to focus primarily on our core components. Yeah. We never tried to be an expert in anything else except what we have built in-house. And I think this gave us that productivity, efficiency on all sides to build Cosmo in a small team and coming to this point today where we,
Well said. And we talked about this in the last episode. And then Jens, you weren't too happy about this, but pass the mic to Jens. I want to hear from a product point of view how we got you to leave your baby, to leave the SDK, to kill it essentially, and to go all in on Cosmo with us. I remember the first couple of weeks you weren't too happy, but then the gears started turning and we made some key product decisions. What were some of those key decisions that helped shape us as a company?
First of all, I would say, so it was my idea to create the WunderGraph SDK because prior to WunderGraph, I worked for a company called Tyke Technologies. We built an API gateway, and I always thought that the workflow is really cumbersome, that a developer wants to configure an API gateway, and we do almost everything in code. But when I want to change the configuration of my API gateway, I have to open a dashboard, like a console. I have to make changes, save the changes. They get then moved over to a gateway, applied, and now the gateway has some new functionality. And that felt like, from a workflow perspective, I thought, wouldn't it be much better if we have an SDK? We can configure everything in code, all our API dependencies and how the gateway should behave and how it should bring together the data. So that was my idea. I thought that's a great product. And what we realized is that a lot of developers really liked the solution, and it worked extremely well when you're a single developer. But the real problem here was we couldn't sell this because it didn't really have impact on a larger team or at the organization scale. So typically we were talking with single developers, people who were building like full stack apps. So it just didn't work, and we had to abandon this idea. And obviously, if you invent something, you're emotionally attached to it. So it's a bit hard to let go. So I think for the first 1 or 2 months, I struggled really to come to terms that this was a good idea, and now we're moving on. And what was really great during this time is that, I don't know, but Dustin wasn't that attached because it was not his idea, but Cosmo was his idea. And so he immediately jumped onto this new topic, and he bootstrapped Cosmo in no time. And then Nitin and Suvic helped him build this. And I have one follow-up question, because one thing I have observed from my role is that we really have, like, the velocity we have in our stack with Cosmo. It's incredible how fast we were able to iterate. And maybe you can expand a little bit on what were architecture and tooling decisions, and how did you build up the Cosmo monorepo in a way that allowed us to move so fast? Because, like, I would say there will be many smart engineers who can build something like Cosmo, but what we have created is not just the solution, but rather a solution where we can iterate upon, like, very, very fast.
Yeah, well said. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very natural to start always with a monorepo. I think I wouldn't have said that before, I think 10 years ago, but today everything starts with a monorepo, and you're going from there. You're trying to extend the stack and incorporate more components, more services. I think if you have to start with such a small team, you're thinking big. You need to come up with a setup which is very efficient, which is easy to maintain from a CI/CD perspective, but also from a collaboration perspective. So I researched a lot how we could build Cosmo, and what I have seen in the ecosystem is that how you can actually generate, based on proto files, different clients in different languages. And there's an ecosystem, a tooling, it's called 𝐶onnectBuff, which allows you to, based on a proto file definition, to generate not just TypeScript Golang clients, but also web clients. So, and if we can all together collaborate on a proto definition and build the API contracts and make the whole stack working, I think that was the best experience so far we had. It was very easy to add more things to the project. One example, our router is written in Go. Our control plane, which is a schema registry, and the API to our studio is written in TypeScript, Node.js. So we were able to, based on the proto definition, generate a TypeScript client that interacts with the control plane, which use React Query. Our router communicates with our data collectors, which are written in Go, and we were also able to generate Go clients based on the protobuf definition. And if you already recognize that, that means we have to touch one API definition file to communicate and to establish contracts across all these components. And this architecture allowed us to not think about view models, to think about middlewares. We could just focus on the implementation.
Yeah, well said. It allowed us to move fast. One note though, while we go over to Bjorn, in 3 weeks we had our first paying customer. 3 weeks. Do you remember that? From idea to MVP, we had our first paying customer in 3 weeks. But Bjorn, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I would love to touch right on that, because the challenge for us was it wasn't a hair on fire problem what we built with the SDK. So we didn't solve something that was super urgent and that enterprise customers would actually go for, even though individual developers loved it. It's still in use, the SDK. Yeah. So it's still got its fans. However, we did have the customer feedback that pointed us in the right direction. I think Jens can say something more about that, which is kind of one of the pivotal moments in our brief history, brief but rich, that it is reasonable to be stubborn about your ideas, but also to be open to cues from the market signals. And if a couple of customers tell you, if we love what you do, but if you added, federation-like capabilities, we might actually become a customer. That's a very strong indicator. So I don't want to speak for you, but one thing I wanted to ask you, Dustin, is how much of what we've actually built as part of the SDK helped us build a better Cosmo right from the start? Because the way I understood it is it's like almost a V1. It's not Cosmo, what we built with the SDK, but we created a lot of the key technologies that Cosmo nowadays is based upon. And we were able to find out during that first iteration what worked well and what would be key requirements going forward and what we would probably try differently. So first handing it over to you and then to Jens.
Great question.
The right direction. I think all the efforts we put into the SDK, I think we were able to leverage in the Go router. I mean, we essentially also built an API gateway in the SDK. From an architectural perspective, as Jens described, is a developer was able to declaratively, programmatically define API dependencies. That could be SOAP, REST, or even Prisma. But internally, we still have maintained a virtual graph, which leverage GraphQL as a metadata, as a SQL language to combine all these different endpoints together. And the router today also leverage this library, which we call the engine, the GraphQL Go tools. And so the only thing we had to change, was more or less the head. The engine is still running, and now we're focusing on schema federation, on GraphQL federation, and
Yeah, well said.
I think Jens can elaborate more on that.
Yeah, thank you. I think one key factor was that from 2018 on, when I started building GraphQL Go tools, it always had in mind to federate data sources, not just Apollo federation, but simply federate data sources. And it was written in a very open way, so that you could implement any sort of adapter for data sources like REST APIs or WebAssembly or anything, which in the beginning we had many of those. And then as you iterate, you clean up your technical debt. But we supported, so our SDK, it supported like a subset of Apollo Federation V1.
Yeah.
So it was kind of possible to do what people asked, but the packaging wasn't right. And from the workflow, it wasn't Apollo Federation-like. So what we did with Cosmo is we essentially took the engine, threw away the ugly car we had built around it, built like like a super sports car around it.
A Bugatti.
A Bugatti with an extra spoiler. And we made the whole thing open source, and it worked pretty well. Also, I would say some decisions Dustin made were really smart, where you can actually see the experience we have on our team. For example, we don't have microservices. It's the most boring monolith you can build, and nobody cares about splitting services because we're a simple team. And the other part is we're not even using GraphQL, because you should use GraphQL when it solves a problem for you, which, for example, when you ask us, and we discuss this with customers, who needs GraphQL when you have API sprawl? So you have many clients and many backends, and you have like many BFFs in the middle. So that problem we can solve, and we're happy to help you with. But we ourselves, we have one backend, one front end, a CLI, and a router, and so RPC is a very good framework. To address the question from Björn, so you ask, how did we come up with this pivot? And we were quite lucky to have Stefan on the team who constantly took notes from all our sales calls. I remember how we sat together on a retreat in the Netherlands, and we were trying to figure out what is the next step. And Stefan looked through his notebook, and he was like, "There's a bunch of people who mention GraphQL Federation." And that was like our I would say our last straw, or the direction we took at this point. And giving back the micro to Björn, one thing I'm curious about is, so you are the COO, so you operate the company, but you're not working on the product, you're not working directly with the customers, you help with procurement, but other than that, the responsibilities of tech and product and sales and everything, this is with all three of us. From your perspective, how did it look at this point that essentially, like, I and the rest of the team, but primarily I with my idea, we completely messed it up? Like, and how did it look from your perspective? How confident were you at this point that we would actually turn it around?
That's a really great question. I need to be careful about my answer. So what I like about the team that we are as founders is that we always strategize together. So whenever, something like, should we pivot, should we not, what should we do about the recent development, once that comes up, we sit down together and try to figure things out, ideally in person. So one of the good things were back then that we actually met in person in the Netherlands in that former sheep den. So we could work together, not just sitting in the hot tub, but working together on a flip chart when you explained based on your notes what was happening with the customers. To me, from a little bit outside perspective, it was like, fuck, this is not what I signed up for. Dang, is this ever going to work? Because now, in hindsight, it's not that much of a pivot, actually, because the foundation had already been laid out. It's just a different and a lot smarter application of many of the principles that we had established. But back then, it was like, we don't know where this company is headed. I have to fully trust Jens, Stefan, on their hunch or their insight into the market that they got firsthand, but I didn't. But I think this is pivotal. So when you work as a founder team, you can't be in every meeting. It's impossible, and it's also not very efficient, speaking as a German. So we need to split that responsibility, and we need to trust. And Jens happens to have one of the deepest market understandings that probably exists in the GraphQL space. Dustin know how to build stuff. So if he says it can be done, it can be done. And Stefan is kind of the first line between WunderGraph and our customers, getting first-hand feedback, taking down the notes. And it was, I think, even before before ChatGPT kind of started taking notes for you. So you had to take everything in your notebook and not ask your notebook, but actually compile your notes yourself.
That's crazy.
Different times, just like 2 years ago. So I had to trust. But the good thing is that we already had spent over a year together, or 1.5 years, running this company, going through highs and lows. So I had the trust that this was the right way forward. I didn't have much choice anyway. So all I could do is make sure that everything on the legal side or the procurement side would run as smoothly as possible. So this was a leap of faith, but at the end of the day, it turned out to be just the right step. Had I believed that this would actually turn out this well? Probably not, but it's always great if your expectations are way outpaced by reality.
Yeah.
Well said.
And one thing I want to add to this is, if we talk a bit about the challenges, the mistakes, and what we learned throughout this period, and I will also hand it to Stefan and Dustin to get your perspective. But for me, I think one key lesson learned was we built the SDK. And I remember how we sat together in Frankfurt for our first retreat, and we said, okay, we're not getting enough traction on the SDK, but if we build a cloud to allow people to host the SDK, then more people would use the SDK. We were looking at players like Vercel, and we thought, okay, if we just do it like Vercel, who had, I don't know how many hundreds more in millions of funding, but we thought, okay, if we just take a playbook from someone who is successful, we should be able to follow them. And we kind of said, okay, Vercel has Next.js, so that's like front end. and we do WunderGraph SDK for APIs and our cloud and then billionaires. And I think one super big learning is, so what we did in this phase is we looked at successful startups and we tried to imitate them. The problem is you don't have their funding, you don't have their connections, you might be in a different space, and ultimately you're also starting at a different time. So what 𝗏𝗏 started, actually, like before it was 𝗏𝗏, it was like 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐼.co, and I don't know, it took Guillermo like so many years to reach the point where actually something like 𝗏𝗏 works. And so that was not an overnight success. So that's one part. And the second part is we scaled the team before we had clear indication of product market fit. And if I can give one single piece of advice, you need 4 founders and maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, but definitely not 5 engineers to get to product market fit. If you need more, okay, maybe you're an outlier in some like hardware space or whatever, or you're building airplanes, but if you're building SaaS, you should be good with a handful of people. So that's I would say my biggest takeaway here. Anything to add from Dustin?
Yeah. We are all first-time founders. I remember the time where we have built the SDK, the cloud. I think technology, it was very exciting. And I believe this is one of the pitfalls if you're trying to build a product just because of out of curiosity. So you didn't really evaluate the market, the needs of what customers really ask for, and I think this is crucial. I think we should have iterated much faster, building a POC, test the market, test it with customers, and then figure out, hey, I think this is not something people will buy or will put their credit cards on. And this is one of the learnings, I think. Try don't be so locked into technology. Try to solve a problem.
Yeah, well said. Okay.
Yeah, just to add one thing, because like I'm a tech founder, Dustin also technical founder, and another piece of advice is technical founders love to build software. And I think what we should have done much more in the past, and we now have completely changed. Like if for like Stefan is joking about this, but I personally have completely transitioned from thinking in tech and thinking much more in business. And so I think what we should have done much more in the beginning is not think about, okay, how do we build the SDK, but rather who would actually buy it? How would the market look like? How do we sell it, etc. And then there's one other aspect in the early days where I also want to share some insights, because Cosmo had an extreme cold start. Like in the beginning, it was extremely hard to actually get customers and to get market share. And one thing you should absolutely not underestimate is it was so hard to get the word out and to actually be seen from people who were using Apollo. And like if you have an incumbent like Apollo with 100 million in funding, they are very loud and they are everywhere, and they have marketing, they go to conferences, and just by the old saying, like build something and they will come, it's not enough, and you have to be like really creative in ways to be seen by people. And sometimes this can be funny, sometimes this can be informative, but maybe Stefan wants to talk a bit about the funny episodes of how WunderGraph got some love and attention.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, like first, like with the challenges, like one of my favorite quotes is like, everybody has a plan till you get punched in the face. And that's what we did. We had a plan for the SDK, we had a plan for cloud, and then we got punched in the face by reality. And Jens is absolutely right. Like when we transitioned, it wasn't like, oh, we built it and like, ooh, everybody's coming. Luckily, from those conversations with that notebook, we kept in touch with these people. And in 3 weeks, we were able to get the first customer. But they had an extremely simple use case. It was so simple. You couldn't get much feedback out of that customer. They're great. They're still a customer. But what 𝐂𝐲 is now at the enterprise scale, it's only possible because of how we got attention. And you have to be creative. You really do. And so the first thing is we said, you know what, we're going to go all in. This was in July of 23. And we said in September, right, we're going to go to GraphQL the first GraphQL. And we got a booth. We were burning runway. The booth was expensive, but you said, you know what, we're going to risk it. And we thought, how are we going to hijack this? You know, we're competing against people that paid $75,000 to be there. They have keynotes. We have a single talk at 5 p.m. with just Jens. And so, yeah, the last day, like, you know, like all the odds are against you. And so we started brainstorming. And the first thing we did is, first, we need to draw attention. So Stefan's going to wear a spacesuit. So I wore an orange spacesuit. We call him the Cosmonaut, and I had a helmet. And so that was step one. Step two was you have to be creative with your money. Conferences can be a little bit tricky about bringing things in. We got really creative with it. And so we were able to sneak a TV in that we bought in the United States and then returned to Walmart. Hopefully Walmart's not watching. But we bought and rented a TV for 3 days. We bought an easel to hold the TV. We bought all the electrical wiring and everything, or else we'd have to rent it to the conference for like, how much was it? Like 25,000? Some ridiculous amount of money. And so we got creative there and we just said, oh yeah, we just brought our own equipment. The third one thing that we did, this was Bjorn's idea, was, we have German roots, and we've been eating pretzels the whole time while we're here in Breton, like just from the bakery. And we were like, why don't we bake pretzels in the shape of the GraphQL logo? And, you know, I started looking on the internet and I found 25 bakeries. I called 25 of them. And 24 of them were like, no, we can't do that. But this other one was like, you know what? Let me try it over the weekend. I'll let you know. I sent him a picture of it and he made it. And he's like, how many do you need? I was like, I need 500 a day. He's like, holy crap, okay. And so it was 500 or it was like 200 or something. It was like 200, I think. Still, a lot of pretzels. And the thing is, we were in San Francisco close to the airport and they're in Berkeley. And I'm like, oh, that's close. No, it's like 45 minutes. And so in the morning, I'd leave at 6 a.m., go pick up these hot pretzels. And I'm driving back and my mouth is watering because there's these hot pretzels in the back. And yeah, we had to pay the hotel a little bit of money to allow us to bring our own food, but it was a hit. People were coming over to the booth. They were like, holy crap, who made this? We were like, I baked them. Please sign up for my company. But we were joking with them. And then that worked and people remembered us. Like they posted it on Twitter. They posted it on social media. They were like, wow, check out these pretzels. And then the last one was, the which one?
Mario Kart.
Oh, okay. So I forgot about that one. On the TV, we didn't put anything about 𝐂𝐲. We just put Mario Kart. And we just told people, come eat a pretzel and play some Mario Kart with us. It was just totally out of the box. And so these engineers, you know, principal engineers at big companies were just coming and playing Mario Kart. And like you're playing with them. You're just like, so like, what are you using for Federation, you know? And it was really creative. But then the last one, I think this was kind of funny, is that Jens's talk was at the very end. What did you call it? The graveyard shift or something? You had a word for it. Oh, you, Bjorn. You had a word.
So. Like it's the last and the worst slot you want to be in.
Yeah, the graveyard shift. And so I was a little worried that people wouldn't go in there. And this is what I call like social engineering or just being creative or having some finesse. I took off my name tag and I just started walking around the conference being like, hey, which talk are you guys going to now? Oh, I'm going to go to the one about the data loader 3.0 pattern by Jens. Do you know Jens? No, I don't know Jens, but I'm going to go to that one. So I started funneling people like sheep into Jens's booth. And at that point, I don't care. You know, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. And that conference honestly was a pivotal point because do you remember the next week we had 35 calls in 1 week? And then from there, it was just, I guess, a snowball effect. And so for me, everything, you know, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And so now looking backwards, like there's so many things we could have done better, but also like there's no way we could have known to do them better as first-time founders. And when we look back, it's, you know, it's a short history, but it's what Bjorn said. It's an absolutely rich history.
What about trucks?
Okay. And then so we got even a little bit more creative. So the drama is, and I'll say it for the podcast, I bought a ticket and a plane ticket and a hotel room to go to New York to go to GraphQL Summit. Not Apollo Summit, GraphQL Summit. I thought it was open to everybody. And I get this email. It's like, hey, thank you for your interest. I was like, it's not interest. I bought the ticket. And they go, thank you for your interest to GraphQL Summit, but you cannot come. And then for the reason, it was just left blank. They didn't even tell me why I can't come. And then I was like, okay. And then I asked Björn, I was like, hey, did they refund the ticket? He's like, yeah, we got the money back. So I was like, well, that's rude. Like, why can't I go to the, what they call GraphQL Summit? And so, you know, we started brainstorming and I got a little petty about it. And I was like, you know what? Why don't we just hijack that conference too? And this is what we call guerrilla marketing, which I think really needs to make a comeback. When companies do this, it's really funny. And so what we did is we rented for 3 days LED trucks. For the first day and the last day, they were parked right in front of the conference and they would turn on at 8 a.m. And so when people were walking to the conference, they would see it. We luckily got a spot because we paid the truck driver a little money to go a little earlier. So he went at 5 a.m. and held the spot from 5 a.m. till 7 p.m. And we would bring him lunch and he would just sit there with the truck. And people were walking by, they were taking pictures with the truck. Apollo wasn't very happy, but not much you can do. And then they had an after party on the next day. And I don't know how I secured this parking spot, but right in front of the entrance to go to the bar that they were celebrating at. And also it was great because this was kind of in October, so it got a little bit darker earlier. 6 p.m. was the party, and then all of a sudden, 6:01, these bright lights about Cosmo turn up right in front of the venue. And to get into the venue and to like where the venue is and where the truck was is maybe 5 feet. Or like not even like a meter. And so you absolutely see that truck. And so we did that, and then we also hired a guy to just hand out flyers, and the impact was, I mean, they announced some exciting stuff for their end, and they got a couple impressions, but our trucks got thousands of impressions. And, you know, it's fun, it's good banter, and, you know, if it's called the GraphQL Summit, you might as well let everybody go. It did more harm than good, but yeah, it's been a journey. Those are some of the challenges. But what about you, Björn? What are some of the lessons or challenges from your end?
So I just wanted to comment real quick on our marketing stunts. I think what really makes a difference if you're a startup and you really care about the startup, when you're a founder or you belong to the staff and you really care, is that you do exceptional stuff that people don't expect and you're very creative. So I think one of the things that make us mighty is that we've got a lot of fresh ideas and a team to make them happen, which is awesome. So like, you can't direct people to do something like that. It's, the creativity that just comes up and say, let's do this spacesuit thing. Let's do the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 and I hope we can retain, and this would be one of the challenges, that we can retain that spirit for as long as we can, because once it becomes like a corporate operation, it's not going to be original anymore. It's not going to be something that you can really touch. And I think also one thing that sets us apart from other companies is that we are a way more professional company now than we were in 2023, but we still try to retain that hunger and the focus on the customer and to do the things that really move the needle. And this, I hope, will be our DNA for here on out. I mean, no matter how big WunderGraph gets eventually, because the people that benefit the most from that are the customers. If people really care and they are creative and they don't get, lazy and oversatisfied with stuff, it's going to be a great outlook going forward for everyone. So one of the key challenges was seeing that you as the challenger in the market get kind of bullied aside by the incumbent. Let's put it that way. So it's like we take it as banter. That's totally fine. And I think there's no harm done. We're professionals, so everybody should be cool about it. But it's really hard if you enter a market that's basically dominated by a single player and you have to make your voice heard. It's like Jens said, Apollo is very loud. So you have to do something. You can't scream as loud, but you have to be creative in terms. And we didn't know if that would work. So when we started, I think it was everybody liked us at the conference. I mean, I just recall those 4 Apollo people turning up in front of the booth.
Trying to intimidate us.
Yeah, but I think nobody really of them took us seriously back then. No. It's different now. So if one thing, an advice maybe for large players in the market, if you think you need to suppress or distract your competition, even if it's a lot smaller than you, by just excluding them from events that are meant for the entire community, it's actually a signal that this challenge is much stronger than you want to make it appear. So this is where we took a lot of motivation from, because we saw that reaction. And we knew we were onto something, also thanks to our customers. And this just gave us more drive, more energy going forward. And now, looking back at the time, I think now the scales have tipped a little bit. We're still the challenger. Apollo still is the incumbent. But a lot of things have changed. We're gaining market share. We gain traction. We've got a really competitive products, and there's so much more to come. This year is going to be super interesting.
Yeah, well said. I mean, keep the mic because I think this goes to you, but we're here in Breton. We're on the working retreat. Talk to us a little bit about the realities of remote work as COO.
So for remote work, I think it's great because you can attract talent wherever talent is. So we're not bound to a single geographic location. Like if we were just recruiting in the vicinity of our office, wherever that might be, we would be so limited. And I'm super proud and honored to work with so many fine people here in WunderGraph. Also all the people that will join us in the future, just because we're not tied to a single location. I mean, we're an American company as WunderGraph, but since we're able to attract talent wherever they are, we get a lot more talent and a lot more capabilities. And we also can, work a little bit more efficiently than maybe people just hiring on the West Coast, for example. However, this all comes at a price. So in the beginning was, let's say, contained because most people were located in Europe, except for you, Stefan. So you were the outpost, our feet in the ground in the US, which was always our prime market right from the get-go. So we knew we wanted to expand more in the US. And now that we do, it's actually challenging to get, time zones managed and arranged. So between handovers of people, talking to customers, that's a lot more challenging now. And I think we're still finding the optimal approach to that. But also from an organizational perspective, it's kind of tricky if you operate in different markets with different legal frameworks. That's, for example, where Deal comes in as a partner that we work with in order to hire in some locations. We do have a legal entity in Germany, for example, so that's another different case. Then we work with contractors, which is another different case. Then we have people employed directly in the US. So that's a lot of tools to work with. And it was getting tough for me just handling this single-handedly as CEO. So I'm super happy that we now have support on that with Alex, our head of people and culture. Which is awesome, but these are all things that you have to think about when you consider a fully remote setup and stuff like shipping hardware and so on. You think it's just a nuisance in the beginning, but once you have to ship more stuff, and you find out that actually paying someone to do that for you is it's ludicrously expensive. So you want to do it yourself still. It's just work, and if your day just has 24 hours, even if you had the night. It's, sometimes you just run out of time. So you have a lot of organizational stuff to cover. And it's okay, let's say, to a size of 20 people. But then it's about to get some help with that. But I think we've managed pretty well. It's also part of the philosophy to stay lean for as long as you can until you've found product market fit. If you start scaling up on some organizational stuff, like, having someone handle the hardware, having someone handle HR, when you're just 6 people, what's the point? I mean, it's the best way to run your company to the ground.
Yeah, well said. Jens, what about from you? As CEO, why remote? Like, well, obviously, because we can hire amazing talent and everything like that. But what are some of your thoughts on the challenges of running a remote company?
So first, I would say on the positive side, I really like the diversity we have in the team. Like we have people from so many different companies, different cultural backgrounds. And I really I think we have created a culture of people speaking up. Like everybody has a voice. There's of course we have some level of ranking, like someone needs to make the final call, etc. But we really like to give people freedom to have some creativity. Like if you bring in smart talent, you can't just give them linear tickets and bugs. They want to have something exciting to work on, so you need to mix it a little bit. But at the same time, what we realize is, like many of us, we're a bit introvert. We like to focus on something, like being at home and focusing on like a very hard task. This is typically the best environment to do it. However, when you get stuck, nobody can see that, and it's very hard. Like If you compare it to, we're currently in this big room here where 10 people sit around you. If you get stuck, you're like, hey, I'm stuck. Like, somebody take a look. And it typically takes like 5 seconds and someone walks to your desk and helps you. So that's the level of iteration is much faster. But then I also heard from people like Jacob, our video guy, saying that he kind of believes that his pace on the individual tasks at home would be much faster, because he likes to communicate so much with the people here, because there's so many interesting people, and then you want to get to know them and discuss with them. So kind of what we concluded is that as we scale the company, on the one side, we obviously want to stay remote first. We don't want to have like a primary office or something, because an office, it can create like an elite culture where you have the group in the office and you have the group across the globe, and it doesn't work so well. But what we want to do is, so you often hear the term retreat. But we kind of like to say working week or working retreat. So where we simply meet, like now for 1 week, we work from a single place. And then also, I think once a year we want to have like a real retreat where we are not like so many hands on keyboards, but more workshopy and more team building and this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think that's my current perspective on the topic.
Yeah, well said. And Dustin, for you, talk a little bit about how it's...
comment.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to do the same with it, but okay.
I think I think hiring is also another factor. It becomes even more challenging because you're not just looking for a developer, you're also looking for someone who is a very good communicator. Like, I have seen great engineers, but they're lacking communication skills. And in such an environment where you're sitting in front of the desk and you have to communicate blockers, you have to teach, mentor juniors in a remote culture. You need to be a person for that. Second, hiring and what was the other thing?
I don't know. I was going to help you out, but you took it.
Hiring and maybe I will come back later to it.
Yeah, maybe. But what I wanted to know from you is, so like building 𝐏𝐸𝐳𝐻, it's a complicated stack and the collaboration is key, but how do you manage, training the juniors, helping out in the technical development and all doing this? Like, yeah, it might be easier a little bit in office, but do you think remote work helps with that you're able to space it out, especially across the time zones that we have?
To be honest, I would say no. It is even more challenging to build a relationship with people on the internet. If you hire people from India, US, Spain, the culture is different. You have to first learn the culture differences, and I think this is very challenging. And but we had no choice.
Yeah, it's a
so pain. And we were super focused on our end results, and if you hired the right people with the right mindset, I think you can make it. Yeah. And so I remember my second point.
Oh, okay, we're back. What was it?
So it was like I think if you would have an office, it is pretty easy to have a bird view on your team, right? If you want to establish that in a remote company, you have to figure out the right tools. What tools do you want to use to have this almost near workplace environment, right? We use Linear, like very innovative tools. We're not using Jira. We use Linear. We use Slack for customer support. I mean, you can tell more about that. And I think that's also important, so that you use the right tools to embrace this culture that feels almost like I want to talk to my friend next to me. Yeah,
well said. One thing that I will add though on the remote work is you guys might not know this, but Björn has 3 kids, all under 10. Jens has 3 kids under 10. Dustin is married and I am married. And the benefits about remote work is, yeah, show for the ladies. Show for the ladies, sorry.
Can I greet my wife, Bettina?
But the benefits of remote work is it's really important family, because, I mean, what's the point of building $1 billion company if you do it alone, you know? And the cool thing about having 3 other co-founders is you get advice, you also get to build that bond with each other, but also we're really focused on giving people the freedom to come to work and work on what they love to do. And with remote work, you allow them to have a life. There is no, you know, commute to the office. There is no boring, like, I have to come into the office and work. And so this hybrid approach that we have, I think it works best because you have your life, you work on WunderGraph, where hopefully a significant but small part of your life. And then you have these working retreats where you come and for a whole week, you're just with the team. And it's what Jacob and Jan said, like, it might not be the most productive week product-wise, but for culture and for the roadmap, it's the most productive week. And you get rid of Zoom fatigue, you come back, and the whole team has this camaraderie, and, like, my coach always used to call her rah-rah. But yeah, rah-rah, and then you're just excited to just go back. And I think it's one of the benefits. And so we're nearing a little bit on time. What I want to talk about now is, it's interesting, and it's going to be fun because I have 3 Germans with me, and they're very direct. So what do you love and what do you hate about WunderGraph? And I'll start with you, Björn.
Just wanted to add one more comment about the family thing. What's super challenging if you have a family and if you work at home, because you're physically there, but you're maybe mentally elsewhere, like talking to your colleagues. So it's a challenge to keep these worlds separated when they need to be separated, even though you can take a lot of advantage of being, you know, right there, so you can do stuff. And it's also tricky to find people who understand the balance. So, I mean, we're kind of at the forefront of these things. We understand how hard it is sometimes, and we wouldn't be here if it wouldn't be for our wives, you know, holding the fort sometimes back home, like hearing the kids screaming downstairs and like, fuck, that sounds like a war. So you feel like you're on vacation sitting in front of your computer, just having a civilized talk, and downstairs it's mayhem. So it's hard, and it not just doesn't require us to be compatible. It also requires the rest of our family to be compatible and understanding. And it's tough. You know, if you just left for the office in the morning and returned at 7 o'clock, different story. And also what's important when you work in a remote company, you need to be able to travel. That also has become one of the critical things to discuss during the hiring process, for example. If you can't travel and can't meet the people you're working with every day, you're not made for remote work. Simple statement.
I like it.
So what we love and what we hate about WunderGraph. I love the company. It's the thing I always wanted to do, like build a company from the ground up. Don't repeat the mistakes I've seen so many years over in different companies in the past. So to me, it's one opportunity to make up for, you know, all the hardship that I had to sometimes go through as a, you know, a mid-level manager, being right in the sandwich position, or just being, you know, a project manager at the beginning of my career. You learn so much during your time, and once you get the chance, and this is really the one in a lifetime thing, to make it different, to actually make a difference and build a different company and culture. That's absolutely what I always wanted to do and what I really love about WunderGraph. I love that we don't know everything. So we don't claim to, you know, be the ultimate wise people in the room. We have a lot to figure out, and we're honest about it. Like we're not claiming to be like super smart and we are know-it-alls. We also make mistakes, and we work with these mistakes because there's a culture of, you know, if you fuck up, you can beat me out on that later, Jacob. So if you fuck up, we can talk about it and learn from it. I think this is super critical. That's what I love. What I sometimes struggle with is friction in a remote company, because if you have conflicts, and conflicts are human nature, so they are conflicts, it's so easy to misunderstand each other on Slack, on a call, just by writing, you know, a short message. Even if one of our principles is always expect best intent or assume best intent, it's not easy. So to prevent friction sometimes just doesn't work. And it's great when we meet, because that's, you know, those things usually don't happen when we meet. But if you don't, it's hard. And sometimes that's taking a lot of energy when you actually just wanted to focus on work. And I think a lot of people would feel that way. And sometimes it lacks the feeling of, you know, being the real team in a room. I mean, we're still the same team, but it's different. Like having everybody here doing a cool hackathon kind of exercise, everything is this hoorah spirit. We all go for the same goal and we have something to ship and everybody's excited. And there's so much energy in the room. Sometimes this doesn't transpire through Zoom or Slack or something like that.
Yeah, well said.
Okay. Love and hate. First, one thing on the family part. No,
Coming back.
Family is important. Everybody has a family, and we also want to hire people that have a family because we like having a family. Like we think it's a good thing.
A good thing.
At the same time, with your family in a remote company, not every day can be the same. And so, because two of our founders have together, like not we together, but we have 6 kids already. We are very understanding of what family means, and we have kind of built a mindset where we're very much results focused, but not exactly hours focused. So if someone works for our company and they have to get a kid from kindergarten, or someone is ill, like it happens all the time, and they have to make a break for 2 hours, like nobody bats an eye. What really matters is that at the end of the month we're getting our work done, and in every other regard we're kind of flexible. And then there's also companies, they say like, hey, your startup is your family or whatnot. Our mindset is we are like an elite sports team, and every member has their family. Sometimes it feels a little bit that founders are a little bit more than just colleagues, because like life and family and being a founder, it blends into each other, because if something doesn't work and it's weekend, it doesn't work and it's your company, and somebody has to fix it. So
Sorry,
this can happen. And then on the love and hate part, I think like one of the biggest things I love about WunderGraph, so we have super smart people within the company, but we also have super smart company around people around the company. And so I would say we're super lucky that we work in a market where we work with like principal software engineers or senior architects at Uber, Paramount, and eBay and other companies. And these are all like very smart people. We learn a lot. It's great to interact. Like I'm a self-taught engineer. I don't have the curriculum that gets you into a Google, but now we work with all these cool companies together. So that's an amazing thing. I would say another positive thing is we never had too much funding, so we had to be smart in how we use it, and I think it kind of forced us to be, I don't know, to be very efficient in everything we're doing. So I think that really helped. The one thing I would say I don't like about WunderGraph, sometimes I miss the days where we had an office. I drive there in the morning, I do my work, and then I stop doing my work and I drive home, and that's the day, like, before I went into IT. I'm a self-taught. I stumbled into this because of an accident with the truck. I was a carpenter, and as a carpenter, you drive to your job, you do a couple of things, you do some work with whatever, or you drive to some clients and you repair something like a door for them or whatever, and then you drive home, and that was it. Like now work stops, and with WunderGraph it never stops. You always have something to do, and you kind of have to set boundaries, like where work stops, and that's really tough.
Yeah, well said. I already know Dustin's.
What I love about WunderGraph, I think it's the whole learning experience. I think we grew so much all together in light speed.
Yeah, like 2.5 years.
2.5 years. I don't remember any. Yeah, there's huge difference from what Stefan was before 2 years, what Jens was before 2 years. Björn, it's amazing. Yeah, and what I hate is a strong word. I would say, hate. I think nobody should underestimate being a founder, especially in a successful company. It is stressful. Yeah, and I think also very critical is that I would like to just shout out to our families and to our partners, to wives. I think this is also critical, and to survive such a journey, that you have to need the right partner, the right family, and yeah.
Well said. For me, what I'll add, I think they touched on all the points, but I mean, there's so much to love about WunderGraph, but there's a special feeling when you get together with a couple guys that you met for the first time on the internet in a small working space in Frankfurt, and you take it to a point where, you know, you have to get a whole conference room to foster everybody in, and there's all these small little stories. And so what I love is that all these people that are joining our vision, they have families and they have their own lives, and us, WunderGraph, what we built, we get to be a small part of their life, a little moment, and hopefully it's a really positive moment. So I love that. And what I hate is I wish we could do this more often. I wish we had 100 million in funding so we can do a retreat every month or something like that. So that's the only thing I hate, but I'm really excited for the journey that we have going forward. And then to close this out, because we are almost at time, it's interesting to understand where we're going as a company. So we started off with this interesting pivot, and we've obviously blown past that. We've added features that only 𝐿𝐴 has within the stack. We've built amazing relationships with companies. We have exciting news coming soon. But from a product point of view, and also company point of view, and a technical point of view, and a customer point of view, where do you see the future of WunderGraph? And I'll start with you, Jens, because it's interesting. I don't want to take your mojo of what we talk about, but the money isn't in infrastructure. Where is the future, and where do we see 𝐿𝐴 evolving into?
Great question. So I think, first of all, what we start to see in the market and what we want to support in the future is we really like the concept of federating data, allowing many clients to talk to many different data sources. And then it's not just clients today, like the newest client on the block, it's AI. So I think what we see much more in the future is AI interacting with APIs, with data. And the best way to have AI talk to APIs is by having a schema, and GraphQL is super great at designing the schema. But at the same time, what we see in the market, and this really influences our long-term direction, I would say, we very much double down on the idea of federation, but we are less and less attached to the idea of GraphQL. So GraphQL for us, it is one way to federate, but I think in the future we will see more ways of federating different data sources. And a federated graph, it doesn't have to speak GraphQL, it can also speak REST, or maybe it speaks gRPC on the client side. And also on the backend side, we see more and more demand to connect AI to your graph. We see demand to connect search services, REST APIs, SOAP. So we're heavily investing in ways of making the graph more powerful. All of this under the umbrella of Cosmo, which means open source, Apache 2. We're absolutely against any sort of license change, or we don't want to have an enterprise version. We don't like that idea. If you look at our Cosmo monorepo, it's still the same thing like in the beginning, and it's very successful. I think our cloud has very reasonable pricing for the value you get. Our customers are happy. We're very happy with this business model. So to everybody who doesn't believe in open source and having a SaaS, for us it works really great. And like one thing that keeps coming up in sales calls is that people say like, hey, we want to use your cloud service, but we really like that it's open source. So in case anything happens, there's insurance, and also we can always look into the code. So that's kind of like what we have planned with Cosmo. And then we're currently building a completely new product. And this product we don't yet want to share like too many details, but like information that is already public is if you look at the announcement from our seed round, we said with the 3 million in seed funding, it's no joke. I actually looked it up the other day, but somehow I don't know. Nobody seems to notice, or everybody forgot. But we said with the 3 million in seed funding, we will be building the GitHub for APIs. So we already, like our North Star, it was always to build a platform to share APIs, to collaborate, to share SDKs, a place where there's documentation, where APIs can be easily discovered, and all these kinds of problems in the realm of collaboration. And the thing is, Dustin and I, in the very early days of WunderGraph, we actually created the solution for this. There's a blog post where we published something that allowed you to publish API dependencies and share them with other people. And we didn't have any market reach. We didn't have the media attention that we wanted to have. But since then, I would say everything has changed. And with Cosmo, we have now such a large customer base that really allowed us to take, I would say, our vision. But you can't just have a vision and build it out and it will work. But what you can do is you can have a vision and then you work with all these enterprises that use Cosmo, and you never talk about your vision. You just ask them about their workflows, their problems, and how are they doing things today. And step by step, we kind of figured out how our vision actually kind of retrofits the problems that our customers have. And so now I would say we're very close in actually bringing it all together. And you should expect some big changes in the upcoming months.
Well said. From a technical point of view, Dustin, don't reveal too much, by the way.
No. I would like to emphasize a little bit on that. I think it's funny that we will come back a little bit to the SDK, right? So
we'll see.
So we will no longer be limited by GraphQL itself, but GraphQL will still be the meta language, the bytecode in our product.
It's
our assembler to orchestrate, to be the source of truth of the contracts of how each data source fits together. And we are then no longer limited by how to expose APIs or how to consume services.
Well said. Give it to Björn, because not on vision, not on product, not on tech, a lot of changes are happening in the company. What does it mean as a COO? I mean, we just hired our first head of people, but what's the future of WunderGraph as a company?
I'm not allowed to speak on tech.
You can if you want.
So for us as a company, this now is the growth stage, which means we have to professionalize or to firm up processes that currently just exist because, that's the way we work. So we have to introduce some structure in some areas. Like, for example, we have to streamline support a little bit. Now we're present in more markets where our customers are. So this is the challenge for us as a company, scaling up. And at the same time, retaining our DNA as an engineering company. So yes, we will do something on the sales side. Yes, we will do something on the marketing side. You will see some fun stuff there in the future as well. But for us, the focus will always be the engineering side. So when you are a customer or someone working at one of our customers and you want to talk with us, you will be talking to an engineer who understands your use case and who is able to help you, because people really know their stuff when they communicate with you. And so to retain this DNA and make sure this still works and hiring the right people to actually make it work, that will be the challenge going forward. And I think as a company, we need to retain the spirit that we discussed earlier. So we need to stay WunderGraph and WunderGraph in all our ways without, screwing things up too much, but still delivering the best value, the best products with the most dedicated and the most engaged team on the market.
What was that? And to conclude on that part, just from my end, what's the future of WunderGraph? For our customers, it means absolutely nothing, because what we want to do is absolutely keep that DNA, keep that support, keep that technical engineering DNA within it. And it just means more use cases. And the power of open source, and when you stay Apache 2.0, is that you get so much knowledge from some of the biggest companies in the world, and that's only possible through open source. And that's why the future of WunderGraph is open source. And with that, this was our 10th episode of The Good Thing. We started it off in January as kind of like a joke. We were like, you know what, let's just do a podcast. Let's bring it forward. Let's talk. We've gotten really good, reviews on it. People have been watching it. And today I just wanted to thank you guys for joining us on the 10th episode, for us being able to do this live. It's been really a fantastic experience, especially to do it live for the first time. And then the good thing is what?
We started WunderGraph 3 years ago. WunderGraph basically turned 3 years ago.
This is how you know Bjorn doesn't come on the podcast, because we end it with the good thing is.
I just wanted to throw it in before you end it.
What's the good thing?
Stefan, what is the good thing?
The good thing is, Bjorn, we're back next week.
Exactly.
Thanks, guys.